Hello, boys and girls. I reflect on you with another episode of Behind the Keyboard. Today, my guest is author Matt James. He's the author of books such as Sub-Zero, the Dead Moon series, the Jack Reilly series, and many others. So please enjoy my slightly rambling conversation with Matt James.
Okay, Matt, it's a pleasure to have you on. It's about time.
Why are we laughing? What's going on? I didn't,
Oh, come on, technical difficulties. I've started other interviews where we're midway through a laugh. So, anyone who watches my channel, they're used to the nonsensical aspect of all this.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So yeah, and being an Australian, I'm already nonsensical.
Yeah, well, you've heard of Florida Man, I'm sure. So, I'm down here in West Palm Beach in South Florida. So I live all around nonsensibles from all walks of life.
So you're definitely used to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, grown to live with it. You know what I mean?
And I suppose that living in Florida would kind of give you a lot of fodder for characters.
Yeah, that's the one thing about Florida is it's one of those states that we really don't have anything that's ours. We're just an amalgamation of everything. Like my family's from the suburbs of Detroit up in Michigan, but there's a large Hispanic culture down here, a ton of Northeastern New Yorkers. And it's just like, here I am born and raised here. And I'm just kind of like, what am I? I'm like, I'm a Floridian. I'm just everyone. So it is, it's kind of is what it is, I guess, with us down here, especially being born and raised here. So, other people that moved here, they take what they have growing up and bring it with them. I am just what I am.
Nothing wrong with that, Be proud of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
So, I was looking at your bio on your website.
Sure.
And just quickly looking at it, you talk about how Indiana Jones, Uncharted, Tomb Raider, all the those awesome action adventure stuff has affected you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the one that like I don't want to talk about those, but the thing that I really want to talk about is, of course, Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah. Oh man, my dad got me started on the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. So he loved it. And he just kind of figured, especially movies back then weren't overly violent. They weren't vulgar. They didn't curse. There wasn't a lot of blood, if any. And if it was just paint.
Yep.
And, it was back then really well done, but today really poorly done, just technology being what it is. And then you see like all the claymation, the stop go and all that stuff. And I graduated to Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, like all of those. But, Jason and the Argonauts, who can forget the Skeleton Warriors, sword. I mean, you know what I mean? There's like so many great moments in those movies. And that kind of got me interested in global mythology. So just like, the gods of old, that kind of stuff. So I do pull in a lot of that into my books as well. But mostly for me, it's just like world history. That's just like my love. I absolutely love it. Hence the background, giant map behind me, which is actually a newer edition. They actually used to be all 4 Indiana Jones movie posters.
Come on.
But pandemic being what it is, off camera that way is actually this half of my office is now my daughter's workspace for school. And she would look up and see Indiana Jones holding a gun next to her. She didn't care. She's grown up with this stuff. She doesn't care, but she felt, I'm like sitting here going, if I'm going to be a good dad and I know she's going to be here and she has a desk, she has everything. So now that part of my wall is like her stuff for school. And I had to kind of condense. And I'm like, well, if I'm removing these posters, which I still have them, they're actually behind me on the floor in their frames, which Lord knows I'm not touching my phone because we've already discussed this.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it alone. So I'm like, well, I can't have a blank wall. So I need something. And I found this really cool laminate poster on Amazon. And I got the biggest one I could possibly get. And it's hard to see on the camera. It's super detailed, longitudes, latitudes, elevations.
Oh, wow.
It's really, really, really cool. So I'll just spin around and stare at it for a second and just be like, oh, have I sent anyone there? And what could I possibly do terrible to them? Like what? I guess it's the mindset of a writer, I guess, right? I mean,
yeah. No,
they can't have a fun time all the time. Something's got to happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, start with fun, go to terrible, end with fun.
Yeah, that's like I had this book, Dark Island. It was actually my first book for Severed Press, and I'm like, Madagascar is cool, right? I guess. And then you research it more and more, and I'm like, Madagascar could be terrifying. I could figure out a way, and I'm like, everybody does Africa, but I've done it several times, and I love it, the Dark Continent. But I'm like, well, what about the Dark Island?
That works.
And there's the name. I'm like, all right, cool. So, but I always saw this little island, and I'm like, I know it's unique and it's endemic and whatever, but I'm like, why not? And
well, yeah.
Sometimes you stare at a map and you're like, oh, all right, let's do it.
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, also, if they can make a series of terrible kids animated movies set around the idea of Madagascar,
yep,
why not?
Exactly.
Why not an adventure book?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I totally agree about like with Harryhausen. First Harryhausen movie I saw was Jason and the Argonauts.
Gotcha.
That's my dad, for him it was like he saw it when it first came out at the movies.
Wow.
All VHS tape, gotta watch it. Showed it to me. The Hydra, and it was the Harpies, the Hydra, and the skeletons scared the crap out of me. Yeah. Absolutely terrified me.
Yeah, the Harpies got me. The harp just because I guess just the women, because it's just you're sitting there going, just and all things they catch them with nets. Who'd have thunk it? It's like, but
makes simplest thing really. Yeah. Do you think you would write? You'd give a character a dog as a sidekick?
I've done it in. I have a. It's hard to describe because the series I write is there's a Dead Moon series that I wrote.
I read the first book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. The first book was so fun to write because the entire book is in first person present, which I know a lot of authors is a no-no. But I always loved the idea of being the character because Lord knows I'm not. I'm just me. But I would always figure, I'm like, well, if I'm in this situation, not me because the character is more of a badass than me, but if I'm the character is conscious, how would I react in situations like this? Am I going to be all gun-ho and bullets blazing and this whatever? I'm like, no, I'm going to be screaming and terrified for my life. You know what I mean? It's like, try to bring it down to a real aspect of it. And later in that series, there's a dog, basically a stray German Shepherd that they adopt, a pup, and completely on accident, and he just basically ends up being kind of like their pet. So without giving up too much of the series, because there's other events that happen between the dog and the first book. There's a whole second book actually. The third book is where they kind of meet, and so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, I've done it. Probably the only reason I don't do it more is because it's so common. It's like post-apocalyptic. Well, you have to have a dog as a sidekick. I mean, that's kind of the I Am Legend Sam thing, that. Yeah. So it's like, it's cool, but then it's like at the same time, that was like a very small. I'm trying to think what I'm trying to say. I don't write a lot of that genre. That was just that series. So, which I still plan to extend, but my current series, my Jack Reilly Adventure series, and now I have a new series that I'm starting on with the amazing Nick Thacker. So him and I are starting a new series together.
Ooh.
But I've gotten so ingrained into the archaeological thriller, world travel, rompy adventure thing that it's like the monsters and like apocalyptic stuff. It's a very small part of my portfolio. So it's people traveling all over the world. They're not going to have pets. So plain and simple.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I mean, what's the draw to the, I call it action adventure. You called it the archaeological. I suck with certain words. Okay. I just killed all credibility as an interviewer.
Yeah, no
Let,
worries.
let's go to the Indiana Jones genre, shall we?
Sure.
What made you go from writing, monsters, creatures, post-apocalyptic to, traveling the world and discovering lost civilizations and all that wonderful stuff?
Well, my first book I ever wrote, back in, what is this? I guess it'd be 2015. I guess it'd be 2015. Yeah, I started writing it late in 2014. Was called Blood and Sand.
Mhm.
And it was the first book in my Hank Boyd Adventures, which I've currently stopped writing. Not because I didn't want to extend the series, but being a new author at the time, I kind of painted myself into an uncomfortable corner and figured instead of trying to write another book in that series and just not liking it or failing miserably, I've just decided to indefinitely pause it. Which sucks because the series had a lot of good following behind it, but it got to a certain point to where I was struggling with the direction of the series because I had already built all of these things into the history of the series and like the lore of the series, and I obviously can't go back and erase it. So, but that series, the character's name is Harrison Boyd, so he's named after Harrison Ford.
Yep.
And it was kind of my homage to Indiana Jones. And I just grew up idolizing that character. I just absolutely loved it. Where people are Trekkies and Star Wars. Now I'm Marvel MCU, but I grew up as the Indiana Jones freak. Like that was my thing. I have stuff, obviously, with the posters. I have stuff all over my office that are trinkets that are Indiana Jones inspired, and now Uncharted and Tomb Raider and like that kind of stuff. So it's just the intrigue of the history and just not traveling as broadly as you have. So I hate to fly. So it's not because I'm scared of it, because I don't like doing it. I have really bad inner ear problems.
Oh, okay.
So the last time I flew was actually this past summer, and I actually blew out my right eardrum on the plane.
Oh, damn.
And it was the most painful experience of my life. Like openly weeping on a plane as a 36-year-old man. So it's one of those things where I've always had like issues with my head on a plane, and it was just uncomfortable. And I'm like, so then that flying was like the last time I'd been on a plane in a while. And it was like, I have like no interest in going anywhere that I have to fly, honestly. And that's just because I don't want to experience that again. But so I live vicariously through Google Earth and my books. And so there's just more of me wanting to go there and see all this stuff. And I just love to write about it because I kind of feel like I'm there, and just growing up in that action adventure genre with all these great inspirations. It's just something that I've adored. And Blood and Sand is actually from The Mummy, 1999, with Brendan Fraser.
I was going to, because I'm 34 years old, so I grew up, growing up in the same period. That Mummy movie, that just, after watching you watch Indiana Jones and you grow up with Indiana Jones, you're just like, he is so cool. Then you get the Mummy, and I mean, then you have with all your friends the ultimate debate: who's cooler, Rick O'Connell or Indiana?
Oh yeah, no. I mean and what's cool is they're both in that same time frame too. So it's like they're both, so it's like they're right in the meat of it. It's not modern day like most of us write. That is period, which is something I just can't wrap my head around to write an entire story through. I mean, the movie making with some of this stuff when it's fully in period and writing fully in period, I just can't. It's like space operas. I just can't do it. I can't do it. My brain goes, never mind. It's like, I can't do it. I have to have some sort of like grounding thing in this story to like keep me in place that I guess I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
So, but like, when he talks, when he's on the riverboat with Evie and he's talking about it, she goes, well, what's out there? And he goes, there's something in the sand, and it's like, and he talks about there's blood and sand, and I'm like, there's like so many little tidbits in all of my books that I call back to all of these inspirations. And whether people think it's hokey or whether people, I try, like I'm known, I don't know if it's a good thing, but I'm known for pop culture references. And I have a lot of readers that love it because they can associate themselves with the characters.
Well, that's the thing. Like the moment you said blood, blood in the sand, I was just like instantly, part of me went, that's got to be from The Mummy. And now, that's the thing. And I'm positive that your new one, Jack Reilly, that's named after Matthew Reilly, isn't it?
Matthew Reilly and Jack West Jr.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yep. And coincidentally enough, when you Google their books, my books come up because of the names, and that had nothing to do with it. I'm not trying to mooch off of Matthew Reilly's stuff, but when I look up my stuff sometimes, because I'm waiting to see if like a new book loads or something, and not attached to my name yet online, so I have to find it. So I'll type in Matt James, Jack Reilly, and then it's my stuff and Matthew Reilly's stuff, and I'm like, well, I guess it can't hurt, but that wasn't the intention. I just wanted to name that character. I needed a cool name that wasn't like, whatever. And I'm just like, but I also don't just like, so like Hank Boyd, Harrison Boyd, it's Harrison Ford. Like I like to have like an attachment with the name if I can. And Jack is a very great everyday kind of hero name. So it's like, and I just happened to stumble upon, I got books next to me and I see Matthew Reilly, Jack West, and I'm like, well, that would be cool, because, it's just such a great character.
Yeah.
Great books. So, but yeah.
Okay. So like right now you're 100% entrenched in this world of archaeology, living vicariously through Google to discover all these places and having those adventures similar to, Nathan Drake, Lara Croft, Indy, Rick O'Connell. Although I'm pretty sure you're not going to write a story with a mummy, are you?
I am in the process of writing something that has to deal with that. It's the one I'm working on with Nick. It's actually called the Anubis Plague.
That's a cool name. That's a cool name.
Yeah. So the whole thing behind that series is we want to bring in kind of like the kind of hard to describe, because the way we want to go about it is that book is going to revolve around the Book of the Dead, but in a way where it's not really the Book of the Dead that is like this all-powerful thing. It's kind of the information that's in what we are calling the original Book of the Dead.
Ooh, okay.
Where all of the other ones are iterations and copies that, like a lot of stories throughout the years, things get lost in translation or lost to time. So we are going to find the Book of the Dead. And like, I try not to get too over the top, like magical and like supernatural, because I hate saying it because I don't 100% believe it, but I feel like when I go that way, I get lazy because you can just do whatever you want if it's magic.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I don't like writing epics, like, the fantasy epics and stuff, because it's just like, well, how does a character get out of this? Well, what if he just has this to do? And it's like, oh, okay, sure. Well, I want a little bit of like, play with it and try to make it as hard as possible on me, and which will make it as hard as possible on the character. It's not always a good thing to do, because then I'm like, what did I just do? Like, how am I going to get around this? But so there's always going to be some sort of scientific explanation behind it. There will be a lot of what if, because that's why we write this stuff and read this stuff. It's because we love the what if. And that's what ancient history is so cool about, is there's so much that we know, but there's also so much we still don't know. And it's what if, what if aliens built all of this stuff? I mean, there's so much that we can't explain, that we can't sit there and go, no, it never happened. Well, give me a reason to believe that. I'm not sitting here hardcore alien guy, but but I'm sure, the more and more and more research you do about this, the more and more confused you are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And I mean, living here in Mexico City and going to the pyramids, in Teotihuacan,
Love it.
You get that sort that, like first time I went there, you kind of see them from a very long, when you first get there, they're a great distance away. And you just look at them and go, oh yeah, they're not big. And as you start to get closer, because you got to walk, you do the big walk through what's called basically the Avenue of the Dead. That's the translation of this basic street.
Yeah, Hank Boyd 2 is called Mind Darkness, and it was based right in your wheelhouse. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but the closer you get to these pyramids, you just start to see them start to loom, and you're like, that's getting bigger. And then when you get to them, you can't fathom how big it is. And there is that part, I've been there twice, and each time I go, there's that small part of my brain that just goes, no way humans could build this. It had to be something else. Just that brief moment of someone else had to do this.
Yeah, you're like, I can come over here with a hammer and a chisel, and I'm like, absolutely not. It's like, and they were supposed to have done it thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. It's like, what? I mean, you're sitting there going, I mean, there's no evidence to suggest it wasn't done. Like, there's no like hard evidence that it was something else. But you're sitting here as a human in the modern era going, we can't do that now.
yeah, not to the same precision.
No,
I mean, like, what we like, and what we can see now, it's not how it was, because they kind of figured that it was probably actually bigger. There were more parts to it. It was color and colorful with paint and all. You just sit there and go, okay, on some level, we might be able to, but if we can't do it now, there's no way.
That's like Stonehenge with the quarry, with the bluestone and stuff. It's like the quarry is like hundreds of miles away, and they were supposed to have dragged these things across a hill in in Scotland with no technology. It's like, well, I mean, because there's no other explanation, but no, because no.
Exactly. So is that like one of the big reasons you write in this genre?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much information, but there's still so much we just don't know. And being able to turn that into, I mean, nowadays with self-publishing as is what it is, I mean, we've all gotten into that business, and there's so much out there, and making a story 100% unique when we're all writing about the same thing. At the end of the day, I've had this discussion with Ernest Dempsey, with Nick, and just through Facebook Messenger and whatever, and we're sitting here going, and Ernest was laughing because he goes, dude, you're basically just writing my books, and and he goes, not in a bad way, but it's just amazing how people with those interests that are writers just all migrate to like the same roundabout topics because of just how truly interesting they are. And we all have our uniqueness to each story, but it's just the subject matter, there's only so much of it, because I mean, we are discovering new things all the time, but I mean, not at a rate to where you have all thousands of writers that are like, oh, I'm going to write about Atlantis. Which I've done. That was the basis of my first series of the Hank Void Adventures. It was my interpretation of Atlantis just based on other research I did. But it's like, that was actually more me just wanting to prove that I could make something original based on a subject that's just been beaten to death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Dead Moon, it's zombie apocalyptic, and it is, but it's not. That's why I don't like calling it a post-apocalyptic series.
Yeah.
Because it's not. There's no zombies. There's nothing like that. It's more genetic mutation within the first person perspective. So it's all happening now. It's not past where you're describing everything. So it's Frank Moon in the moment. What the hell's happening? Oh my God, that's the it's like squirrel, and that's like, but that's real life, you know what I mean? So, and that's why I love that character and I love that series, because I'm typing and then all of a sudden hyphen, this happens. It's like, there's no like, because my brain is just like, oh, what is that? And it's just like, so writing like that is really fun. And that's, specifically that series, that's what people love about it, is they're like, it's so hard to follow, but so easy to follow because it's just the human mind and how we would react to certain things. So it's just a normal person's reaction. And I guess, but that was fun. But yeah, the action adventure stuff, it's been a love of mine. It'll forever be a love of mine. I've deviated a little bit here and there. But I've always come back to some sort of historical grounding with every book I write, whether it's even just modern stuff, like in that post-apocalyptic series or that series, locations, there's always a lot of information in history about certain locations that they're at. And, it's not just 30, 50, 80 years in the future, and it's just wasteland. It's like, that's why I try to write current story without getting too, like, not political in the sense of normal politics, but political in the sense of like timeframes. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I try not to mention certain things to try and ground it to like a certain year. So it's, because you do have to jump around timelines sometimes. So Like James Bond. James Bond's a perfect example. That dude's been living in the same era for his entire career.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just my, movie making, where it's like, you don't want to age the character too fast, because in that case, James Bond is like 98 and still doing his thing, so.
Although part of me would like to read that version of James Bond, the 90
Well, we're getting that in Indiana Jones. So.
Yeah, true. And I mean, like, okay, speaking of Indiana, everyone I
Sure.
know just says, there's only 3 movies. From my family, there's only the 3 movies.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. So this is where it gets kind of wonky with stuff like this. So I was born in 1984. You're obviously 2 years younger than me. So I don't know about you. I never saw an Indiana Jones movie in theaters.
No. Yeah, not
so
until
when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, I was like as happy and as energetic as humanly possible, to the point to where there was nothing that movie could have offered that I wouldn't have loved it. You know what I mean? So it was more of that experience to finally be able to see one of these things in theaters. So much so I saw it back-to-back nights. I saw it twice, back-to-back nights, Friday night, Saturday night. I saw it because it was like the first night I had to go see it on opening night. And it was like, the 50s, aliens, the subject matter. It was, they aged the character appropriately to a degree. But you're like, is he old? Yeah. Is he this? Yeah. But it's still freaking Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And I am just enjoying it as a fan. I'm like, was it the greatest? No, it's my least favorite of the 4 movies. But at the same time, I got to see an Indiana Jones movie in theaters.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that was like the experience for me. So it's like people with Star Wars, when the original series were gone and then the prequels were coming in, you had a whole generation that never saw movies in theaters. Now, regardless of what you think of those movies, the prequels, it was like, it was still being able to go see a Star Wars movie in theaters as a fan.
Yeah. I get that. And I still remember being taken, like, okay, missed the original run of Star Wars, but I remember in 97 when he did the special editions.
Mm-hmm.
They were released in cinemas in Australia. And my dad just went, okay, we're going to see them at the movies. And I'm like, awesome. And he said, we're sitting in the front row. For A New Hope, you're sitting in the front row. And I went, why? I'm going to be like this thing, he goes, trust me, for A New Hope, you want to be like that. Now I'd seen, my brother and sister and I, we'd seen that movie countless times leading up to that. So we're like, it didn't click why he was so excited there for that. And then the moment that Star Destroyer comes over, the 3 of us just went,
yeah.
And I get that. Same thing with, Crystal Skull. It was the same thing for me. Indiana Jones, but what killed it for me was Mutt. He killed the movie for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of like, I really don't have a great explanation, because usually I'll try to like defend it, like I do with a lot of the Marvel stuff now, which is like I'm totally ingrained in. But you try to defend it a little bit, and you're like, well, you knew eventually that they were going to pass the torch. I mean, that's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, people don't want to see Indiana Jones recast.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't want to see Sean Connery recast. You know what I mean? And you're sitting here going, look, at the end of the day, do you want these stories? Do you want these movies? Do you want, if it's done the right way? And I think what happened with that is they were trying to figure out a way to have basically what I think they were going to call the Mutt Williams, whatever, he was going to be like the next Indy.
Yeah.
Shia LaBeouf has his moments, but he's not an action hero. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, he has his moments, but he's not. And that, like now what they're talking about is, I know their fans hit the actor himself. They're pushing for Chris Pratt to take over.
Yeah.
I know years ago there were links to, I'm sure you remember, there were links to Brendan Fraser, which would have been like unbelievably perfect if they had done it in the 90s and 2000s. But I think it was with ownership and stuff, they just didn't want to, whatever.
Yeah.
But, there was like rumors of, I think there were rumors of like Bradley Cooper. The issue is, it's like, and then what they were going to do is they were going to go pre-Raiders.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can make the character younger and it not technically be a recast. It's just like it's not young Indiana Jones, but it's not Indiana Jones. So it's just kind of like what, because I mean, remember in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, when he gets arrested by the FBI or the Army intelligence or whoever arrested him, they talk about his war credentials.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, okay. I mean, they could do a whole series on when he leaves the army and then before Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah,
because I think there's probably like a 10-year period, 8-year period, or whatever it ends up being in between that based on his age. And like they could totally just do all these adventures before all of this stuff because he had already, he was already known. Belloc in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You look at the history there and you kind of go, come on. Yeah. And that's the thing you're absolutely right with Crystal Skull. See, with Crystal Skull for me, that moment when he's getting taught, when he's, he's being interrogated and you get that full army background and everything with Ray Winston's character. Yeah, there is that party that just goes, oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's, maybe that's where they'll go. Because I know that they said this is the final Harrison Ford version of Indiana Jones. This is it. And what that means, I have no idea. I mean, they're not going to kill him, number one. I mean, we know that. I mean, well, we also thought that with Han Solo.
True.
So, but they're not gonna. That would be more of a finally retirement.
Yeah.
Whatever, which I honestly thought was the end of 4. When he finally gets married. So to marry and Karen Allen's character, but you're like, I guess not. I guess he's going back out.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't have a problem with Shia LaBeouf. I actually do enjoy him a period of time. I didn't like the way the character was written for Mutt. Yeah. Because it was they weren't sure what they wanted to do with Mutt. That was the problem.
Yeah, he's a greaser, and you're kind of like, okay. Yeah, I mean, the reveal of him being his son was fine. I have a problem with that. It's
but everything else.
Everything else. Yeah. His character. Oh, he's an expert swordsman. Cool. It's like, yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, fine. Have him do a Tarzan impression as well.
Yeah, and now Spielberg isn't doing anything with Indiana Jones 5, so it's a different director. So hopefully there'll be a more fresh take on what's going on. Just I mean, Spielberg's going to revert back to what he's been doing for decades. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, if you're given, like, if they came to you, if they came to you and said, Matt, we want you to write the novelization of the next Indiana Jones movie, I gather you would say, yep.
Oh yeah, of course. I would be terrified. I would be utterly terrified. But well, yeah, of course. I mean, and that's what a lot of people don't know is there are a ton of books. There's a ton of books in the Indiana Jones series with all these great adventures and stuff. Like there's an Uncharted book that's amazing called The Fourth Labyrinth, and it's by Christopher Golden, I think, wrote it. And it, again, Nathan Drake is like my favorite, like, modern day hero of anything. I just adore those games. And I love, it's like, I don't care what people say. I love what I've seen with Tom Holland portraying Nathan Drake.
Yeah, he's gonna be good. He's going to be good.
They're like, oh, he's too young. And I'm like, yeah, but they're like, oh, I mean, the perfect character, again, this should have been done 10, 12 years ago, was Nathan Fillion. And he did the fan movie. I don't know if you've seen
yes, I saw the fan movie.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Nathan Fillion is in his early 50s.
Yep.
Late 40s, early 50s. And I'm like, I'm like, as great of an actor, as good a shape as he's in, he's got his TV thing, The Rookie. And you're like sitting here going, what are you going to do with an actor that old? With a series that you're going to want to make 6, 7, 8 movies with. You need a young actor. And it's like, I'm okay with that as long as it's like explained. And
that's it.
Like, and that's what I love about it is that the game creators are involved in the entire process. The Naughty Dog guys are involved in the entire process of what's going on with that movie. And the screenshots that I've seen of him in full Nathan gear, it is legit video game Nathan gear. And I'm just like, okay, this is Mark Wahlberg's attached for what it's worth as Sullivan.
And that's the thing. They'll
younger Sullivan, Sullivan,
and they're you will get that series of movies as they both get older, or if Mark Wahlberg chucks a hissy fit and quits for any reason, they can recast him and all that. But they'll lock Tom Holland. If that first movie is a massive success, and it will be.
It's gonna be.
It's absolutely. Anytime any movie comes out, a big movie that has that sort of Indiana Jones 1999 mummy feeling, everyone goes for it.
Yeah, because you have I mean, people like us that just adore the genre.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I've never written in the genre. I'm kind of like iffy about it, because my stuff is much more blood, guts, very dark humor.
Yeah,
Um,
like I did a creature feature like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah, that's it.
no,
So, I'm kind of iffy about tackling, that sort of thing full on.
Sure.
Just because I
Sure.
know, the fans will be like, well, there's too much blood, there's too much guts, there's too much swearing. It's not, I don't want to say innocent, but it does have that sort of naive feeling about it at times.
Yeah, and that's I guess just as I've matured as a businessman at being a writer. I started out going, I wrote Hank Boyd Adventures, Archaeological Wonders, Seven Wonders of the World, like that kind of stuff. Really loved it. Very heavily influenced by everything we've talked about.
Yep.
I wrote Mind Darkness, which is the second book of the series. The third book I wrote was incidentally called Plague. And it was very different, about a Nazi virus in the Serengeti.
Okay.
And fans adored it. They loved it. I had a blast writing it. It's all about a team of Aussies. So
how much research did you do on the Aussie lingo? That's
a lot of swearing. A lot of swearing.
But I mean, did you get the like the actual Aussie slang and idioms that we use?
Some of them.
Okay.
Some of them. I didn't go like super hardcore into it. I just wanted to like basically you had to hint at the obviously the characters, and knowing that my audience, everyone's audience is the American reader. So it's just being what it is, where all the money is. You can only go so far with it. Like I remember there was this book by Steve Alton called The Lock.
Oh yeah.
And, it's all based in Scotland, and he's got a couple of like, I don't know what he calls them, but Scotties, like backwoodsy Scotland types. And holy crap, did he go dense with the lingo? And you're sitting here reading it going, what? It's just like, no, very authentic, really, really well done. But for me, just as some dude, high school educate, I'm just a normal guy. I'm not a linguist by any means with this kind of stuff. I'm just kind of like, it took me aback for a second. I had to reread some things to just kind of get the gist of what that particular character was going for.
Yep.
So it did get a little too much. And I think that is a struggle. So, world travel. So all of my books rarely take place in the United States. Mm-hmm. And if they do, it's pieces. So my biggest problem is all of, like you were saying, the idioms, the dialects, the slang, the lingo, the names. I mean, there's no Bill down in Colombia. You know what I mean? It's like where the book I just released on Friday, the third book in the Jack Reilly series, the whole book takes place in Colombia and then partially in Brazil. So he's average Joe, white America, ex-soldier down in Colombia, and he knows like a little bit of Spanish, enough to be like, kind of understand what's going on, but also to the point to where like me, I can kind of, being in South Florida, I don't speak it, but I've been around it my whole life to where I can get the gist of what people are trying to get across, as long as they don't like speak rapid fire, because then, but that's Jack. So Jack's the same way. And I like that because it keeps his character like, what? Like, slow down. Like, and that's part of the humor in the book too, where he's just like, dude, English, to like, he's one of his guy that he's meeting down there. He's looking and they're talking and he's just standing there on the sidelines going, English, I don't know what you're saying. I'm supposed to be here helping you and I have no idea what's going on. It's like,
yeah, I get that completely. I've been here almost 5 years, just under 5 years, and my Spanish, it's okay, but I've had moments where I'm just sitting there going, subtitles, where's the subtitles? Where's the dub?
Yep.
Totally get that. Okay, so you said that, you mentioned that one of your early books had that with a Nazi plague.
Yeah.
And then the first book in the Jack Reilly series also has something to do with Nazis.
Call it the Indiana Jones in me.
That's why
I love to pick on Nazis. I don't know. I mean, I think it's free game, but no. So I was doing research for that book, Plague, and it talked about Erwin Rommel's Africa Corps when they were based in Northern Africa. and Hitler being obsessed with the occult and obsessed. That's not just an Indiana Jones thing. That's fact.
Yeah.
That's fact. He loved all this stuff in a weird, disturbing way. And so, so did Himmler, and so did all those guys. They were really out there with some of this stuff. And I also wanted to write about just Africa in its like base form, which is just the plains, the animals, the reserves. So I decided to bring the Nazis further south than most believe they ever got. So, when they're in the Serengeti National Park, basically, and Logan Reed, who is the main character, obviously named after Hugh Jackman, Logan, as an Aussie. I mean, come on, inspiration is what it is. But so he's just a retired SAS guy, and his sister is a Serengeti zoologist and works very closely with all the wardens and all the game security and all that stuff in that area. She's that's like her expertise is the Serengeti. And when Logan retires, he's kind of down on his luck. He doesn't know what he needs to do with his life now because he was a fighter his whole life. And she basically begs the warden at the time to bring her brother in just for, in this case, peace, peace of mind, because he's rattled with a lot of PTSD and not murder, but death and just destruction and, the whole thing that a lot of those guys go through.
Yeah.
And so he's shipped over to Africa with his sister, obviously also an Aussie, his older sister. So she calls him baby brother a lot through the book, just poking fun at him because he's a badass and she's not, but she knows that he still has reign over him. And then as time goes on, friends of his follow him over. This guy, Grave Fitzpatrick, they just call him Fitz. He's another soldier, Logan's best bud, best mate. And so it was one of those things where I just started introducing a lot of that character. And I think a lot of that was the Jack West Jr., Matthew Riley, just fanboy, where there's just, you think of something and it's really cool. And then you get it on paper and you're like, oh, this isn't really all that original, is it? Because you're like, your inspiration's there, but you don't recall where you were inspired.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, you make changes, you do whatever you have to do, but that was just my entry. But that book was based on a lot of World War II history, a lot of local mythology and history. I built in a lot of my own lore to obviously support the story. Same idea. There was a second book in that series called Evolve, which did really well again. The issue is I started getting more and more and more ingrained in the action adventure genre versus the more military horror thriller. And I still wanted to write the third book in that series. It was just supposed to be a 3-part trilogy, but it was one of those parts where I started writing other stuff. And then I just got kind of pulled into this other world, this other genre that I absolutely adore, and kind of started getting away from a lot of the blood and guts.
Yep.
Not that Jack isn't rough. I mean, Jack can get really, really rough being a retired Delta operator. He's got the conscience, he has his morals, but he's been trained to take care of people in very, very awful ways. And so he's not afraid to get dirty. He's not afraid to fight dirty. He goes for the groin shots. He goes for the nose, the eye, ears.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in the book, and he says there's no such thing as a fair fight. You know what I mean? He goes, you're fighting to the death. You do whatever you can to injure your opponent. And that's true. So it's like, those series were great, but it's just getting deeper and deeper into this, the action adventure archaeological stuff. I'm more at home there, honestly. Yep. It's more natural. And that's just kind of where I'm going. Will I ever go back to the other things? Maybe. But my schedule being what it is, still working full time, supporting my family, my wife. She works full time. I write as much as humanly possible. I do artwork. I've done a lot of artwork for Seven Press. I do artwork for a mutual friend of ours, Chris McKinley, with Screaming Banshee.
I was actually going to ask about the covers that you do.
Yeah, that was actually so Screaming Banshee Press is a new publication that we've done work for. You've written for. I've done the artwork for. I haven't written for him. Not on purpose. He asks all the time. I just time being what it is, I'm usually wrapped up in another series or another book, and he understands. It's there's no bad blood. I would love to. I just would have to stop what I'm currently doing to do it.
Yeah.
I don't like doing that. But yeah, those covers, specifically his anthology covers, because I've done them for some of the other books that he has released under that label. But those anthology covers were kind of born out of like the magazine serial, like comic book.
Yeah. Was it Blood, Brain, and Bullets? That's a beautiful cover.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was awesome. And then Aberrations,
Yep,
the feature, and then Contact, the current one. I'm going to be doing some other ones for him. I've actually done quite a few covers for him that have not yet been either advertised or released. Like he'll have an idea and want to cover, and I'll do it. And then we've been talking about a few of his other ideas for anthologies, which I obviously let Chris talk about that. I don't want to give away anything that doesn't come through.
Yeah, no. Totally get that. But I mean, how'd you get started? Like, because I know you've done your covers you do your own covers for Severed.
Yeah, there's one cover out of my, now 2 covers that I've done out of my entire portfolio, which is 26 deep, that I haven't done the covers for. So, and that is the first Severed cover, which is Dark Island. Mm-hmm. Mostly because Gary, the president, didn't know I did covers.
Yep.
So he had his guy, whoever he hires, do the cover, and fine, I don't care. Plus, I'm the newbie. That was my first book with him. I'm not going to throw my weight around. Weight that I don't have. So, and then the Bonebrake adventures that I write with David Wood.
Yep.
I did when Kindle Worlds was a thing, which was an amazing thing, and it did so well, and they still decided to shut it down. I don't know why. That sucked. But I wrote a book for him called Berserk, which was a Dane and Bones adventure outside of the normal storyline.
Yeah.
And that was all about the Norse berserkers. That book was so freaking fun to write. But he likes to go over the top, and he likes going more sci-fi with certain things, supernatural certain things. So I got to go a little above my normal, and that was fun. But it was still very, very historically grounded, because that's all of his stuff. And then I did Skin and Bones, which was about the Lastrygonian giants from mythology, and a lot of like that stuff. So, and the third book I did was called Venom. And Venom was originally in the Kindle Worlds, and it was about the Sachamama, which is like ancient Mesoamerican giant serpent.
Yep. Yeah.
Yakumama and Sachamama, or whatever. I'm horrible with the pronunciation.
Oh, trust me, I'm worse.
Yeah. No, I understand. So that was about that, and all of our books. My first #1 bestsellers, we'll call it, and they did great. They all sold fabulously well. It wasn't like, oh, it struggled, this, whatever. No, we want to keep pumping those out. I still plan on writing more exclusively with Dave as far as the Bonebrake adventures, because those are really fun. I just feel more comfortable with the Bones character than I do the Dane Maddock character, because Bones is just more slapsticky and just kind of, grunty, and just he's more off sense of humor. So those books I love. And then Venom, we were re-editing and redoing the storyline just for whatever reason. Dave had a few ideas to kind of spruce up the story even more. So it sat for a while, and we had an idea of how to re-release it. And then Dave was currently writing a book that came out called Serpent, which is a Dane Maddock adventure, and pulled me aside basically. And he's just like, I really want to use parts of this book in Serpent. That's why there's like a disclaimer on Serpent that, some of it is based on the book Venom.
Right.
But it's an entirely new adventure. It's just the mythology behind Venom is what he the base for Serpent. And then he reworked, thank God, he reworked Serpent on his, or he reworked what became Lost City on his own as a payment to me. Because I did so much heavy lifting on Venom. He goes, if you let me do this, I will do a lot of the heavy lifting on Lost City. and just, re-release it for the both of us. So there's a lot in both books that kind of tie back to that original book. So I don't have Venom anymore, except he actually re-released it in a, can't remember what it's called. Yeah, there's a collection. There's a collection that he did of like short stories and called Legends. That's what it's called. And he actually re-released Venom in its original entirety in that short story because he was getting people asking about it. And he goes, okay, we just used it as like a base for the subject matter for Serpent. And he goes, sure, if you want it again, I'll re-release it again. I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's, and there's a character from Dark Island that's in that book that isn't in Lost City. So it's kind of a neat way to introduce one of the main characters from Dark Island. And because in Dark Island, she references this basically tall Native American asshole that she has to deal with in the Amazon. And unless you read Venom, you don't know what the hell she's talking about.
Yeah.
So because of the timeline, I released Venom first, then I released Dark Island on my own. So it was just one of those situations where it was kind of fun to get Venom back on the market. So I am accredited for more books than there. So I don't know, but Dave had the cover done for Lost City because he kind of had an idea of what he wanted. So that and Dark Island are the only two I haven't done. I honestly couldn't tell you how many I've done now because I've done a lot for other authors.
Yep.
And it's been a cool ride doing them. I like them. Specifically, back to the first question, how I got into it.
Yes.
We ramble. What can I say?
It was one of those situations where
I honestly didn't want to have to pay an artist.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of one of those things where I was just starting as a writer, and I started getting into. There's this program I use called GIMP, GIMP.
Oh yes.
Whatever. And I didn't want to have to pay for Photoshop.
I thought it was called GIMP.
GIMP.
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah, I don't know. It's what's the other one? A GIF? Is it a GIF or a GIF? I don't know. Whatever. So GIMP, GIMP, and it's a GNU image manipulation program is what it stands for, and it's a free program that gets you base image, rendering software and like stuff. So it's not as high tech as like Photoshop is, but you can't buy Photoshop. You have to rent it.
Yeah, I hate that. I remember when you could buy it and you were set, and then Adobe changed the whole thing and fucked it for everyone.
Yeah, so I would like to use Photoshop because there are stuff that I just can't do in this program. But for like what I need, I'm not doing like movie posters. I'm not doing like super, super high def stuff. If I can piece together the book cover in, the way that I do it, I'm very happy with it, and I continue to do it. And let's be honest, like how I started writing, how I started doing podcasts and this kind of stuff, YouTube tutorials.
Yep.
I'll let somebody else that paid thousands of dollars to go to school for it tell me how to do it for free. Seriously.
Nice.
I started writing. I was complaining about movies, and my wife told me to shut the hell up and write a book because I was just like, oh, I would have done this different. I would have done that different. So I literally Googled how to write a book. And that's always a funny story because people are like, what? I'm like, I don't have a literary degree. I don't have any of this stuff. And, I don't pretend to be an expert at this. I'm just the everyday guy that gave it a shot and is still, which is so funny because like 80% of the people I talk to is like, sure, you too. It's like, I know people that they have degrees in all different kinds of walks of life, and now they're just writers.
Well, see, technically it's not by like US standards, it's not a degree, it's similar. I went to TAFE, which is like technical college in Australia, and I did sound recording and movie making. So everything I do, every book I write always comes from a point of view of it's an adaptation of an 80s action horror movie.
Sure. Yeah, like I write, my chapters are scenes.
Yeah, same here.
So when the scene is done, the chapter's done. If it's a long chapter, shit, I might have to do 2 chapters. So it's just like, but I always end the chapter with some sort of quip, some sort of cliffhanger, some sort of this, because I'm thinking how a scene ends in a movie. And that's being a movie fanatic as a writer. So it's like, I wasn't a writer as a writer. It's like, I'm the guy watching the movie thinking in terms of production.
Yep, that's exactly how I work. That's exactly how I do it. Even my pitches, like if I send a pitch to Gary, I'll do a pitch and then I'll say, it's basically these movies put together.
Yeah, like camera angles, lighting, the whole shebang. I'll be like, what is the most awful camera angle I can think of? and portray that to the reader, especially when it's more bloody and gross. And I've done it, and I've grossed people out, but they're also like, bravo. I'm like, you got my skin to gotta go a little cold with your description, and it worked. I mean,
that's your job then. That's the job.
That's my job. So hey. But yeah, so I just started screwing around with this stuff, and I'm still learning, still trying different things. And now I'm just doing covers to the best of my ability. I've done covers for Severed for other authors, and I couldn't get what Gary wanted correctly, what Severed wanted correctly, and I just bowed out of the project. And I'm like, look, I'm not gonna waste my time. I'm not gonna waste your time putting together a cover that isn't what you want. And if it's not what you want, and I just can't mentally put it together and then put it down on paper, then so be it. No big deal. It's not the end of the world, But my problem is I see images on Shutterstock and all these different web royalty-free websites, and I start putting covers together that I have no idea what the hell it's going to be about. So like my Jack Reilly series, I have 19 covers done.
Whoa.
I've released 3 books.
At least you don't need to worry about the other 16 covers.
Yeah. So, but what I'm doing is I see reference for story.
Yep.
So I'll see an image and go, I might be able to write about that, and then I'm like, well, and I mean, now because I'm so locked into specific series and specific stories, I'm not going as crazy as I used to making these things. I have a lot of like horror and sci-fi stuff that I've made that I've no intention of writing now, just because I have no time to do it. And it is outside of the current genre that I guess think me about. So it would be a little, like you said, if you dove into the action adventure stuff, it's like, would your current readers latch onto it well enough to where it's worth your time? I mean,
well, see, maybe like my latest Severed book, The Valley of Bicho, it's more action adventure with just giant bugs.
Sure.
I just submitted to another publisher a book, and it owes a lot to Indiana Jones and John Carpenter, and it's called Zombie Nazis on a Train.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I kind of already I do have the action adventure spirit in my books. It's more that I haven't gone the complete like Indiana Jones, Rick O'Connell adventure. There's always that element of horror and all that sort of stuff to it, and that's the thing that keeps hold. Like that's the thing. If I wrote an action adventure story and said this is an action adventure story, I'm pretty sure I would get lynched, because everyone would be like, "There's too much blood. There's too much guts. There's too much swearing. There's too much."
Yeah. I've that's what's really funny about that is I have maybe my definition of the genre is just different than some people's, but like I say action adventure, my brain goes as horribly PG-13 as I can make it.
Yeah, that's it. See,
like I'm allowed to go over the top with certain things, but there's certain things I'm not allowed to touch based on the spirit of the series.
Yep.
I don't have a lot of kids reading my books, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's, what is an adventure novel?
Yep.
An adventure novel has a very specific vision when it comes to the customer and when it comes to me. So it's like I understand how far I can go. Like for instance, a lot of my other books, I go fairly loose with language.
Yeah.
Jack Reilly, you'll never hear an F-bomb. Never going to happen. You never heard one in the Hank Boyd series. Mostly in the Hank Boyd series because my parents read them.
Yeah. Okay,
so my dad reads every book that I've written. He reads them all, and he's just supportive. He's not he does not read this genre, but he just wants to read his boys' stuff.
Yeah, that way he can brag to his friends.
Yeah. So, but there's like
certain,
like I've never said, I don't say it in real life, but I've never said, MFer. I've never, there's certain lines as a person that I just don't cross, and my characters don't either.
Yep.
Have I thrown a lot of, F-bombs in there? Yes, I've done it. I've said some dumb stuff, some funny stuff, some awful stuff, what did I say in the Dorado Deception, which is Jack 3? Jack is walking down like this jetty out, and they're basically going to steal a boat and go down one of these rivers in the Amazon basin. and the name of the book was, or the name of the boat was all in Spanish.
Yeah.
And he said, it's a 5-letter description of somebody's 4-ish cousin, or it's the title of the next Godzilla movie.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great
So
line.
it's like,
Yeah.
you're like, your imagination is going, oh, that could be really bad.
Yeah, that's
like,
that's great. That's great.
Yeah, so something like that. Like I'll throw whatever hints out that I can on certain things like that. Like I rein in a lot of sex. I don't do it. There's like, he'll linger on like, oh, and then that's, but it never gets raunchy. It never gets like that. Like there's just certain lines that I don't cross, because there's certain lines that Indy didn't cross. There's certain lines that Brendan Fraser, Rick O'Connell never crossed. There's always innuendo. There's always romance. It's always like, but it's not Bond-esque where it's sometimes a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Where it's like different girl in every port. That's not Jack. Jack's the single guy traveling the world, fighting, discovering great things. He's not a relationship type guy.
Yeah.
Pulling back the curtain, I do plan on bringing in a little bit of a reoccurring romance character with Jack, not to the point to where it's going to be in everything. He's not going to be like tied down. It's not going to, but there's going to be a reoccurring character. This is like probably years in advance. Jack 4, I'll introduce her, Jack Reilly 4, which was incidentally supposed to be Hank Boyd 4. Oh. So that story's been on the back burner for like literally 4.5 years.
Better late than never.
Same title too. I haven't even changed the title.
That's nice.
Cover into what people expect the Jack Reilly covers. The marketing behind it.
Yep.
So I'll introduce this female lead that Jack will kind of flirt with a little bit, but it won't be like I have a girlfriend now. But he's not going to romp around with like different women. It's if the occasion calls for it and it makes sense in the story, and it's not obvious that he's just trying to get laid, which again, not Jack. He does have a moral standard based on the way he was brought up, with his parents dying when he was young, being raised by his grandma and grandpa, his grandmother. So the whole reason I went back to Nazis and the Forgotten Fortune was because I wanted to write about the Nazi gold train.
Yep.
I wanted to write about it. It was just this subject that I just think is so cool. And honestly, I do want to beat up Nazis.
We all do.
We all do. So, and I think it's also just a easy villain, but a villain that people are very comfortable with getting beat up. So I'm okay with it. I love it. I love the subject, World War II history. And in this case, it's Nazis. It is what it is. So the whole reason, well, not the whole reason, but a reason that Jack is there, he's actually in Auschwitz-Birkenau. His grandmother was in Auschwitz as a kid. So she is a Jewish Polish person. Yep. So Jack's background is Polish Jew, with his grandfather was in the British Army. So he was a very young buck as a part of the emancipation team that came in and basically cleared out Auschwitz. And his grandmother was one of the inmates. Yep. And so they connected through events. His grandparents connected in events and eventually got married, So Jack, his parents dying young, his parents died when he was 6 or 7, and was basically adopted into his grandparents' home. And his grandparents' home was world history. His grandmother eventually became a historian with the Smithsonian, and his grandfather was a British veteran, Army veteran. So he grew up in a household of military history and world history. Okay. So he has an appreciation for it and an understanding of it. So his base knowledge of a lot of this stuff is very dense. And like me, my love of this stuff translates to the character. Yep. So he has an interest in this stuff on his own already. So, but obviously he's not the expert wherever he travels to. He's not the expert. Like when he goes to Colombia in the Dorado Deception, he is not an expert on all things Colombia. He is not an expert on what they're looking for down there, which is obviously El Dorado based on the title. So he knows of it. He has a very loose understanding of what's happening because he's looked into it himself, but he is not the expert. So, the people he eventually starts working for, which you would have to have read book 2 at the end of book 2 to kind of understand what's going on. Eventually, currently he's a Yellowstone ranger, and he did that because his grandmother lived in Iowa, so in that area, so in that, or Wyoming, in that general area. So he started working there based off of a friend of a friend's recommendation, and he's had a lot of issues with dreams, with PTSD, with just like suffering because of his last mission with Delta was like one that just haunted him. Basically, he was in Iraq during the Mosul incident, which is where American Delta operators paired with a lot of local soldiers over there to clear out this place called Mosul in Iraq. And it was a big battle that turned the point in part of the war. I dropped Jack's team in there, and Jack basically experienced an 8-year-old boy blowing himself up.
Yeah.
So, and it haunted his dreams. He's just like, the fact that the kid would want to kill himself instead of going back to his father, who Jack was hunting. Jack was hunting an ISIS leader and trying to take him out. And this boy could have ran, but decided to go after Jack instead. And it was just this thing that just broke him. And he was just, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So then he's, so now basically the first 2 books in the series, he's accidentally thrown into the world of adventure. And then in the 3rd book of the series, it's purposefully. So, because he starts working for this clandestine organization, which I've dubbed the Tactical Archaeological Command. So it's basically a sect within the government that doesn't exist. And their job is to protect history. Where like, awful what they did, what ISIS did, tearing down all the monuments, like that kind of stuff, when all of that stuff was happening, and like, wiping things off the map just based on erasing history. So this organization is there to prevent that from happening. So they value history. They value the value in the history and what it means to the local people. So they aren't there to pillage and plunder. They are there to protect. So, and Jack is one of these agents now, and he gets picked up by this organization just based on his abilities, his history with the Army. So now, he's a badass that loves history and is single, more than willing to travel the world to take care of all this stuff. And, so I have the ability to kind of drop them where I want at the whim, because that's now his job.
Cool.
And he loves it. He loves it because he understands it. He's not just doing it for himself anymore. He's doing it. Yeah. He's used to fighting for a cause.
Cool. And that's good. That really that makes the character likable. And I've got the first one lined up to read on my TBR list, which every time I do an author interview, it just gets like, and so much bigger. But that's the great and terrible thing about the current state with Kindle. So when can the I don't want to say millions of people watching this, but like the small handful of weirdos who watch this show, where can they find you?
Well, like all of us, I'm all over social media. MattJamesAuthor.com is probably the easiest place without having to do a lot of searching. Just Facebook being what it is. So, I have all of my links, everything on my website. Website's very, very straightforward. I try to keep it as minimalized as possible. A, it just runs better. But B, I also want the reader to just be able to click and then there not be like a jumble of stuff. My website, there's a thing at the top that says writing progress. So basically what I do right now, there's 3 things listed. It says The Dorado Deception, out now. Number 2, it says The Anubis Plague with Nick Thacker, first draft. And then the next one, it says Jack Reilly for research. So I want to clue in the readers to what the heck I'm doing. And then below it'll be like coming soon, out now, like just blasts on what's happening. There's links on Amazon. It'll take you right to the book page. There's bio stuff. I'll have pictures of some of the cover art that I've done. I am for hire for cover art if people need it. So you're more than welcome to contact me. I technically have a business email now. It's matt@mattjamesauthor.com. I know it's very original. So considering I'm the only one that operates it, I don't have to have like info. It's like info.
That makes sense. And I probably will hit you up I will probably hit you up for a cover at some point.
No, thank you. Yeah. I do the whole shebang. I'll do ebook, print, and audiobook if needed.
Ooh,
so I do it all. So as far as like current works, like I said, The Dorado Deception just came out Friday the 30th. It's already doing really well, so that's nice to see. I actually have most people don't know what the hell this is, but you do. I actually have a 99-cent book club going out on Friday.
Ooh.
For Jack Reilly 1 for
damn it.
I know. It is what it is, but we got one, and
that's good. That's good.
They're incredibly hard to get, and it's going to do wonders for the series.
That's awesome, man.
Like I said, I'm currently writing the first book in the Zara Kane thrillers with Nick Thacker. Zara, Zahra. So you'll appreciate this. Her inspiration was current Tomb Raider video games.
Oh, okay.
Lara Croft, not big boob.
No.
Angelina Jolie. Current, and Evelyn Carnahan, Evie from The Mummy.
Okay, when you got to let me know when that comes out, because I'm going to definitely be getting that.
For quick background, without Nick yelling at me for giving too much away, because he's Nick and he's awesome. He's a swell guy. As I say, I dedicated book The Dorado Deception to Nick Thacker. Thanks for being such a swell guy. Is what it's. Yeah, he's great dude. I can't say enough nice things about that guy. But her inspiration is she is a American father and an Egyptian mother. So very, very much based on if Evie from The Mummy was a badass.
I love that. I love that idea.
So yeah, she's going to have more military background, but not special forces like fighting. She's going to be more army intelligence with the British Army. So she's not doing it anymore. She's retired, but quick backstory is that she basically her father was renowned here for his work and got hired at Oxford to teach, and very much Indiana Jones inspired, with certain things like that. So she was moved to London as a kid and grew up in England. So when she grew up, she joined the British Army because she lived in England, even though she's at this point American blood. But her mother was an Egyptian historian. So there's a lot of the history, a lot of like the backstories involved with that. So, but she ends up actually becoming a army intelligence linguist. So she's like beyond intelligent in ways where she like people, like it's like her conversations get really, really deep and really like heady. And but she's really good with language. So she's going to be a character that can speak a lot of languages.
Cool.
Do it very, very well. And then the Tomb Raider comes into play where she's not afraid to get dirty. She's not afraid to get, she likes being out in that atmosphere.
Yep.
So her character is going to basically be like the two of them put together. And then because of her family history, that's why I've set the first book with a lot of the Egyptian history and mythology, is because her background being half Egyptian. I wanted to revolve around her history and her bloodline. So
cool.
Yeah, and that's a current book, so it's still in the weeds. Like it's still going to be a bit, but that's the current. The current or works.
When it comes out, I want to like you've got. No, you said it's it's modern Tomb Raider mixed with Evie from The Mummy. I'm like, sign me up. I'm in, man. I'm in.
And for you, since you have Forgotten Fortune, we also just released the audiobook. So you can get it for a really nice discount if you own the ebook already. So
cool.
I think the Whisper link
Whisper
or something.
Yeah.
Whisper Sync,
cool.
yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
And, the author Matthew Crow did an amazing job. He's currently but he's currently setting up or working on the Roosevelt Conspiracy, which is the second book in the series. So I know they've signed Severed has signed him on to do the series as
cool.
It sells well enough. But Matthew did an amazing job. He did such a great job on the first book. I'm always really, really, really scared to listen to my own stuff.
Yeah.
Hearing it, I'm going, wow.
I get that. I get that.
But Matthew did a great job. Matthew did a great job. So yeah, so that's available on audiobook. Second book will be coming out whenever it's available, released. But I got a lot going on over here besides normal family stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. It's nice to be busy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for coming on, Matt. I'm after talking to you, I'm kind of getting more interested in seeing if I could write a actual proper, action adventure story without my usual over the topness.
There's a lot of inspiration behind that if you want to go over the top. And perfect example is the Chess Team from Jeremy Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, his books like glued me into this series because the first book called Pulse deals with a lot of the Hydra mythology.
Okay.
And a lot of like that stuff, the Hercules stuff, and like a lot of like, and the series is so dense and so deep. And he goes really, really big and brutal, and like really like super soldier serum and like that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay, all right. So it can work.
Oh yeah, it can work. And those series is, I mean, he's like an inspiration of mine as a writer. Just some of the stuff, because I originally started doing arc reading for him just as a fan, and that's kind of what more or less inspired me to kind of start writing.
Okay.
It was that series just kind of blended the science fiction and history so well to the point to where like he writes about a book called Cannibal, which is about the mystery of Roanoke Island and like what happened to the people that settled that. You know, he goes all over the place to the Congo and starts doing like dinosaur stuff. And like he's down in like in Siberia and Russia, and he's talking about what do they call them over there? It's basically like the Yeti, the Bigfoots over there.
Yeah, you mean like it's not the Sasquatch, it's
something else. It's like the abominable snowman, but it's their
version. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
So like it can happen, and it can be done really well. And that whole team is former special forces.
Yep.
So they're all very, very, very good at what they do, and they are military trained, and they go against some really nasty, nasty people and creatures. And it works, and it's world travel, and it's like, so I mean, that series is such a great launching point, stuff like that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because I always I love going over the top. So that was the thing that had me concerned. So okay, knowing
I go as far over the top as humanly possible, just not in the way of fantasy and science fiction and like that kind of like, so you know, like you see Uncharted, you see Nathan Drake, he climbs all over the place. He's got the the rappelling cables and the cords and this, and I'm like, I don't care. It's cool. It's awesome.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
I don't care if he never gets tired. It's like, it's great. I don't care.
Awesome. No, that's good to know. Okay, I probably will throw my hand into the ring there. Anyway, Matt, once again, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. It's been great. I love talking this stuff all the time. I wish there were honestly more channels that did this, to be honest.
Look, I'm happy to have you come back on. Honestly, I'm more than happy to have, I've got other guests, other authors who are like, want to do this again. I'm just like, yeah. So I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy to,
Absolutely. Obviously a lot of, I just rambled on about a lot of stuff I'm working on. So
that's okay.
But specifically the project with Nick, because Nick is just, he has a background in graphic design and marketing. So his great writer in his own right too. Don't get me wrong. He's freaking genius when it comes to marketing stuff. And I'm awful at that. So it's like great partnership because he's awesome. And so specifically when the Anubis plague starts getting closer and closer, I would love to sit and talk about it more because it's still in the early stages.
Yeah.
And obviously audiobook releases will have stuff coming out, and I will eventually start leaking Jack Reilly 4 just because I can't help it. I just love talking about that crap. So I mean, for me,
look, definitely amazing. Look, when you're getting closer to the Anubis plague coming out, you let me know, and we'll do this again. I'm more than happy. More than happy to. I've had a blast talking to you, man.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And once again, a very big thank you to Matt James for coming on and having a chat with us today. You can find all the links to his website and to all his work in the description below. And if you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe and share it on everywhere. And if there's a particular author you'd like to see me ramble along with, feel free to put their name in the comments below. Thank you very much.